All right, you wanted to kick this off with a discussion of Private Party, which was
Yeah.
we kind of went back and forth with this one in the Discord.
Yeah, well, what kind of bugs me about this is, okay, so Private Party comes in, and it was funny. I remember back when AEW first debuted, I'd heard about this team. I had never seen them. And then they showed up on the second episode of Dynamite, I believe it was, and they beat the Young Bucks in the tournament to crown the first ever AEW Tag Team Champions. It was a big upset at the time, and Dave did a big thing about how he thought it was a mistake because the Bucks needed to be established to a national audience and all this. So they get this big win, and then they ended up losing their next match. And within I think almost right away, they were basically mid-carders or even low mid-carders because they got hooked up with Matt Hardy. They're part of the Hardy family office, I think they called it. And
so
then
much so that John LaRocca still cannot get their name right because he just calls them Party City.
Yeah. And they they just kind of floundered. And they had some injuries as well. And I think Mark Quinn, before the injuries, Mark Quinn was like the standout guy. And then I think while he was injured, Isaiah kind of took over and he developed his own kind of personality. And they were calling him Zay for a while, like it was just Zay. And then when they came back, like he was a step ahead of Quinn. And then they just kind of lost momentum. And then at some point, the Young Bucks decided, well, we're just going to do what we did before again. And they put them over for the tag team titles.
Which, if you think about how viewers maybe had never seen that, because remember, you think about going back where people were like, oh, I didn't watch AEW that early on, so I missed all of this stuff. Them doing it again wasn't a big deal to me because I'm like, yeah, there's lots of people who didn't even see it the first time.
Right. But they also did a good job of showing it, like to the new people. So, like, I thought they did a really good job, in that program. Like, obviously the Bucks had a lot to do with it, but they were given the ball and they ran with it and they had a great match. And then immediately they were forgotten about. Like, the next time we saw them was on Collision and they weren't even wrestling. And then they got put in a 4-way at the pay-per-view with like 3 jobber tag teams. They won. And then they get programmed with the Hurt Syndicate and they lost quick. And then we haven't seen them since. So, and then now, you hear, okay, WWE has interest in them. And then immediately the AEW hardcore fans are like, good riddance.
Not all of them, but definitely a segment of them.
I mean, I literally saw that comment. I saw, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. And it's like, man, like they just churn on them because I think they want to be loyal to Tony or the company. And it's like, well, if he doesn't like them, I don't like them. And it's like, it's just too bad because these guys, like, I don't think they did anything wrong. I just think the problem is that the AEW doesn't have a developmental system. But I wanted to go back to when I first saw them. You remember at the time, 2019, this is when the Street Profits were basically, they were still in NXT. They were kind of establishing themselves. And I remember seeing the two teams at the time, and is a natural comparison. And you're thinking, wow, maybe like I would almost bet on Private Party. Because they just beat the Bucks. Obviously, AEW's way behind them. And, they're going to be working with all these great tag teams in AEW, and they're going to get better fast. Like, that was the mindset at the time. And then meanwhile, Street Profits, just slow and steady. They worked their way through NXT. They got to the main roster. And now, like, I mean, there's been hiccups along the way, and people wanted Montez to break out. But now they're like the top tag team in WWE pretty much. And and they're having great matches, and Private Party is, if they come into WWE, they're probably gonna be on Evolve. Like, I don't know, like NXT maybe, but they're like so far behind. And so, like, yeah, I'm glad for them if they can get to WWE because I think that's what they need. But it's just, I just find it sad that AEW fans just seem to kind of given up on them.
I think it's two things. One, you've seen their push. You've seen the up and down and the back and forth and the in and out, and all of a sudden they're not on TV anymore. And then all of a sudden they're on TV, and then they have Matt. Like, they've been through like 3 or 4 different careers in AEW. And so to the AEW fan, if you like them, you're like, okay, you're giving them another chance. Hopefully they do something better. And if you're like, okay, guys, like, we've seen it, it's not happening. Thus, it is time to move on. And if that is the case for some of those people, then I agree with them. But the problem that I have are the folks who think it's private parties' fault solely 100%. You mentioned not having developmental, and then you'll see here's my least favorite one. Oh, they're not down with the grind. They don't want to go to Japan. They don't want to go to all these different indies to work on their craft. The generic wrestling fan who talks about working on their craft drives me nuts because these people have no idea what they're talking about. Generally, they're taking somebody else's take and thinking that they understand the ins and outs of the business. And there may be some people who do think that. I would trust it if they had wrestled before or if they understood some of the personnel stuff. But if you're just reading internet memes and then thinking that that's the take, then come on now. You're no better than Triple H saying the same thing about Will Ospreay. So then if the other thing is, if you see it as, well, whatever the AEW ecosystem, however that works, they have kind of exhausted all opportunities. I'm also cool with that because we do have what you said was another company that may be able to utilize them. And you love posting this in our Discord, which is this Bryan Danielson gif of saying that people are fickle. And if you were a private party fan and you're like, okay, they're leaving, and now that they leave to the other side, you now hate them, then that's exactly what you are. You're not a fan of wrestling. You're a fan of wrestling companies. And that is my biggest problem with this whole scenario. This happens in all real sports, by the way. You'll see a player, and I saw it, like the best example that I have. Now, a lot of this was political. A lot of this was racial. Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, yeah.
Colin Kaepernick on the 49ers. He was the next guy. He was going to take us to the promised land. He's going to be the quarterback for 10 years in a row. And the second the team sabotaged him and kind of created a blackball effect for him. Now, the NFL this is also the NFL part. And this is why I'm not a big fan of the NFL. I still follow my team very closely, but the NFL, as it exists today, can go kick rocks. But they created a place where all of a sudden, because Colin had the audacity to speak freely about his political thoughts that did not align with the NFL's and did not align with the president of the United States and did not align with a giant part of the NFL fan base. Those fans were like, okay, he was never good. Like, this dude was in the Super Bowl in his second year of his career, and now he was never good. It was smoke and mirrors. So that is the fickle part of it, but it's because people believe, if you're not smart enough, I get this, that these guys who own teams, because they're so rich, they have to be smart. They just have to be so brilliant to be so rich, when most of the time they're rich is because their parents were rich and they were born into it. So for someone like Tony Khan to say, hey, yeah, maybe it hasn't worked out, and thus maybe he doesn't re-sign them, that isn't Tony Khan saying you guys suck. That is Tony Khan saying it hasn't worked out here. And so if they go to WWE and the AEW fan who was previously a fan of Private Party go, okay, those guys suck, no wonder they went to WWE. They're just idiots. Like,
Yeah.
Be a fan of the wrestlers. And this is not going to be a Tony Khan conversation, because personally, I like Tony Khan, and I know you do too, like the human being that is Tony Khan.
Yeah.
I think he's a really good dude. But at the end of the day, when AEW's revenues and their profits are great, it's just the money goes to him. He's the 100% owner. It may cause raises and people may make some more money. It may cause some leverage and you can bring over more talent, and you're putting more talent in the pool, and you're making the wrestlers a little bit more richer. But let's say AEW wrestlers get 25% of the pie. I don't actually know what it is. Maybe it's 30. Who gets the other part of it?
Well, and there's other expenses too. So, I mean, it's not all going in his pocket, but when they got an increase on their TV deal of, you know, whatever it was, you know, around 85 to 100 million, and they're getting 185 million. Well, their expenses sure as heck didn't go up $100 million a year.
Yeah, and
So
this is where the
yeah,
NBA. I was actually
yep,
talking to this with my kids because we were talking about the difference in the structure of the WNBA and the NBA. The Players Association and the NBA have collectively bargained for 50% of revenue
hmm
as part of their as part of the salary structure. And in the WNBA, they only get I forget the term, but it's like extra revenue or something. Like their pool of salaries comes out of this other bucket of revenue for the WNBA. So when they go back to the table at the end of this year, they're going to request a much bigger share of the revenues. And so, like, let's say that Tony Khan shares 25% of the revenues with his talent roster. He still gets the way majority of it as the 100% owner of the company. And that is how capitalism works. I'm not
oh yeah,
complaining about that.
no, not at all.
But when AEW does well, you are actually rooting for Tony Khan to get richer and to be more successful. So just understand that part. It's the same thing with TKO, right? It is the
hmm
same thing. TKO is all about profits, 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 so that they can get richer. The people who run TKO, it's not about the wrestlers. It is about the ownership. So when someone says private party, let the door hit them on the way out, I'm like, no, you should actually root for them to succeed, because then it just
Yeah,
raises the level of the crossover to the other companies. It's so short-sighted to think of it the other way, but I get why fans think of it the other way, because they are trained to be so loyal to laundry, right? They're trained to be
yeah,
so loyal to whatever the graphic on the TV show says, rather than to the specific wrestlers, which is what I am rooting for constantly. And I with pro sports too, I root for my local teams, but I root for the players to get as much money as humanly possible, because they are why I watch, not because, some rich kid who inherited a team from his dad hasn't fucked it up yet, which is a lot of times what happens. So
yeah, yeah. Well,
I,
and
I
what
like the private party thing.
one other thing I just want to add, and it's quick. They're younger than I thought they were. Quinn Cassidy's only 27, and Quinn is 31. So you know, if they go to WWE, they could have a long career there.
And guess what? If they don't make it, then it's like, great, you had an opportunity in AEW,
Yep.
you got to a specific level. Now you have an opportunity in WWE, you get to a specific level. What else is out there? Maybe there is other opportunities. Maybe they reinvent themselves. Like, not every wrestling character debuts and they just get to a level for whatever reason. There's lots of different parts of the thing to make it work. And so you just root for them to do well, to find something that works, to hit on something. LA Knight, in
Yeah.
his 40s, right?
hmm
Joe Hendry, though, I'm still kind of, I'm not so sure about his future in WWE, though he will make a lot more money than he's ever made if he makes that main roster. Guys like that, like, you just root for them to get that check, man. Make that
Ethan
main
Page,
roster.
Josh Alexander. You know. Yeah.
Yeah. So